They actually did it. Twitch actually changed their rules. Twitch actually got rid of boobie streamers. It's gone. Good, bad, or indifferent, no matter how you feel about it. I never thought that Twitch would change their rules. After legions of gooners and coomers have finally fallen, Twitch has made the decision to remove this from their platform, and they've done so with a community guidelines change. For those of you who don't know, and who have been living under a rock recently, on Twitch there is something called a boobie stream that you can go and view. Now, what this boobie stream consists of is typically a woman who is heavily showing off her breasts, her buttocks, her genitals. I have seen it all. I have seen anal creases. I have seen titty jigglers. I have seen ass jigglers. I have seen green screen booty cheeks. I've seen the whole gambit. I have seen women jiggling like this on camera with a little tiny corner of gameplay up here in the top corner. Helldivers is what I've noticed a lot of them are playing recently. And I think that Twitch is getting some pressure here. We'll get to why I think this change came in just a second, but I want to actually go over what the rule change is. So the new adult nudity policy that has been added to Twitch community guidelines, I'm going to read it for you really quick. Users are prohibited from broadcasting or uploading content that contains depictions of real or fictional nudity, regardless of the medium used to create it. Incomplete censoring, such as pixelizations, mosaics, blurring effects, sheer, or partially see-through clothing, do not constitute an exemption of this policy. For example, you may not show or promote exposed anuses or fully unclothed and exposed buttocks. The fact that they even needed to specifically say this is mind-blowing to me. Any amount of exposed genitals, female presenting individuals' breasts with exposed nipples unless actively breastfeeding a child, and then art history, educational content, or public art that might feature nude figures are exempt from this policy. That's the whole policy. So there's a couple of things that are gonna pop up here. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this trend as well, but over on Instagram, they have a similar thing with breastfeeding over on Instagram. And so women, sorry, I don't mean to laugh, it's just so comical to me. Women on Instagram have now started to take baby dolls, whip out their titties on Instagram like lives and videos and stuff, and pretend to breastfeed the child, the doll, because they want to be able to show off their titties without getting in trouble. And I think that this we might see a breastfeeding stream trend on Twitch, and that just sounds mind-blowing to me that this is something that we're even talking about at this point. I am shocked and appalled that this is even something we have to put in the rules. Why does Twitch need to tell people, do not show exposed anuses? Their community guidelines policy. Why? Why is this an issue? Why are people like this? Everybody knows that the site is for people who are ages 12 and up. And I've even seen a lot of these people who are doing these streams not using the 18 plus tag. They aren't even using the 18 plus tag to mark the content. They're just jiggling away, and they're not even using the 18 plus tag. Now, let's jump back into my surprise about this situation. I am shocked that Twitch has decided to remove the boobie streamers from their platform, because quite frankly, it's been the common thought for a really long time now that they would never ban them, they would never get rid of them, because they bring in so much money. They even made them their own category so that they could have bikini streams, boobie streams. And even then, it wasn't enough. They had to push the envelope even further. It wasn't enough for them. They had to keep going. They had to pursue. They had to get them delicious Coomer dollars out of people's cold, clammy hands. And furthermore, on top of that, I think there's a couple of interesting hypotheses that are floating around as to why they might have made this change. So the first one that I've seen that I kind of feel has some validity to it is that the parent company, Amazon, was feeling pressure from advertisers, from businesses that use their platform, from just government organizations even, which I'll come back to in a second, to get rid of this on a website that's for people 12 and up instead of 18 and up with no age verification process. I think that these kinds of pressures on Amazon made Amazon go to Twitch and just slam their nuts on the table and say, hey, you're not allowed to do this at all anymore. But in particular, I want to jump back to the government stuff recently. So for those of you who don't know, very recently, TikTok has been in a whole mountain molehill of trouble with the US government. Congress is actually moving right now, or in the process of moving, to ban TikTok. Mostly because they're owned by a Chinese company, and they claim that it's over data concerns, but I think it's more about stopping people from being able to make fun of them en masse on social media, because that's typically what people use TikTok for nowadays when it comes to politics, is to make fun of specific politicians. Interestingly enough, the people who are strongly or for banning TikTok are people that get made fun of a lot on TikTok. Anyway, I think that Amazon/Twitch looked at the government reaction to the way that TikTok is behaving right now, because this isn't the first time that TikTok has been brought to the floor of Congress to speak. And I think Amazon and Twitch have been spooked by the US government into making this change. I mean, obviously I'm not an insider. I don't know, but I would not be surprised if some members of some agencies of the US government went to Twitch or Amazon and said, hey, we're going to start passing legislation restricting your ability to control these types of things. If you don't fix it yourselves, you need to self-police you need to get this going. And the reason I wouldn't be surprised about that is because they did the exact same thing with the video games industry. They did the exact same thing with the movie industry. They even did the exact same thing with the theater industry, where, for example, if you go to a theater, you have to be a certain age in order to purchase certain tickets. You have to have ID on you. That's not the law, actually, in most places, if you don't know. I know this because I worked in a movie theater for so long, and it may have changed since then. But this is actually just movie theaters policing themselves, because they were afraid that the US government would pass legislation restricting them in certain ways from doing business the way that they wanted to. So I think that a government entity actually might have stepped in and yelled at Twitch and Amazon, or threatened them indirectly, or even they just saw this TikTok stuff and were like, hey, let's put the kibosh on this. And they decided to just police themselves and make the change here. So I think that has the most credence. I've also seen some very strange conspiracies here about Twitch getting rid of the boobie streamers. And one of them is particularly interesting to me. And this conspiracy is that Twitch hates women, and it was a sexist move, and they're trying to get rid of women who were successful on the Twitch platform. And I find that to be extraordinarily unlikely. I mean, if you just look at the actions that Twitch has taken in the past, typically speaking, they just bend over backwards to make their female streamers more happy. They gave them their own category to do boobie streams, for example, like the hot tubs, beaches, and public pools category. That was made specifically to be like a containment category for boobie streamers. And I think that saying that they have to cover their bodies or whatever, and this is a website that's supposed to be safe for people who are 12 and up, I don't think that is the same thing as being anti-female streamer. I don't think that those two things necessarily gel together like that. I think that people might be overreaching with that theory a little bit there. And I mean, even if you look at the way that Twitch likes to enact its rules, typically speaking, for these booby streamers and really successful streamers, period, really, not even just females, just successful streamers. Bless me. They like to bend the rules a lot for them, right? And like I said, not just the women, the popular men streamers, they also bend the rules all the time for them so that they can continue having them on their platform. Now, oh boy. Now, the thing is, I don't think it was a sexist move that had anything to do with women's rights at all. But I've seen some really strange reactions from the people who do think that, just going completely buck wild, off the rails. They seem to be under the impression that everyone is out to get them at all times, and in particular, it's a weird claim to make about things like Twitch, or even in some cases, YouTube, especially with Twitch, because Twitch has gone out of its way to create, like, I forget what the hell it was actually called, but their discrimination community council thing that was made up of a whole bunch of ghillie ghouls, including that one person that like is a deer or whatever. I don't know what their shtick is. I have no idea what's going on there. But I remember they created an extremely diverse community panel. So accusing them of things like not of being sexist or being racist or being discriminatory towards certain groups, I think it's just very foolish and short-sighted. It's almost like you didn't even try to remember that Twitch did all these things in the past, like create a community council that was mostly minority run, like mostly LGBTQ or like furries, or it was designed specifically to help bolster diversity. And I think that a lot of people seem to be forgetting that because they're accusing them of being sexist for getting rid of booby streamers. But it just makes sense to do that since it's a platform. Again, and we're back. A little bit of tech issue there, but we're back. Again, what I was saying is it's a little bit weird to accuse them of being sexist for getting rid of adult nudity on a website that is supposed to be safe for anybody 12 and up. And I have seen a huge backlash of people when someone will say something like, this website is supposed to be safe for people 12 and up. I've seen a huge backlash of people who are like, no, you're just upset that women are successful and getting money and you don't like it and you want to stop it because you're sexist. But it actually very obviously has nothing to do with sexism at all in any way, shape, or form. It has to do with whether or not you can show off your nude body to children. And that's very obviously what the problem here is. But on top of that, it's obviously a marketing and business move from Amazon or Twitch, I mean, I have no idea which, that has nothing to do with sexism. It more likely has to do with advertisers and brand image than it does sexism. That's just a ridiculous theory. And I've also seen people who seem to be of the belief that Twitch is doing well enough now that they don't need the booby streamers, and they've always wanted to secretly purge them but just haven't. And I'm just going to throw some water on the fire with that one immediately, because I think that that's just total nonsense. I think that if you think that, you really need to focus up and think about what you're saying before you say it, because if they really wanted to get rid of them, they would. And if they were really doing that much better, which they obviously aren't, I don't think that their first move would be, hey, we're going to get rid of something that's bringing us in a ton of revenue. I actually think that this decision wasn't revenue driven in any way, shape, or form at all. I think it was more advertiser driven than anything else. And the reason that I think that is because there's never a reason to just cut off your revenue without a real good reason. And they bring in a lot of revenue. But something else that I want to talk about is that I'm not sure exactly how this is going to go, but I'm really curious to see, one, how do the booby streamers evolve? Because they always evolve. They always find a way around the rules. They always figure it out. So I'm curious to see what the new meta for booby streamers is going to be, how they get around the rules, because they always do. And I'm also really interested to see does overall Twitch viewership drop? Because I have had this theory for the longest time that it does not matter if the Boobie streamers are on Twitch. Those viewers are just going to watch other Twitch streams. That's the theory that I have. I don't think that anybody has ever said, hey, I'm going to go watch YouTube. Just fuck Twitch. I hate Twitch. I'm going to YouTube. Or fuck YouTube. I'm going to Twitch. I don't think very many people think that way. So what I'm curious to see, and honestly, for, you know, self-verification and gratification purposes, I'm curious to see if the numbers drop and those viewers actually go to other websites to get their content, or if those viewers just stay on Twitch and watch other streamers. Because my theory is they'll just stay on Twitch and watch other streamers because they're in the Twitch ecosystem. I think that 90% of the people who were watching these Boobie streamers weren't coomers who were just uncontrollably playing with themselves while watching these Boobie streams. I think it's much more likely that 90% of them were just memers. They were just there for the meme, for the joke of it all. They were having a good time. I don't really think that it has anything to do with the actual sexual content. That's not why they were there. I think it was a meme for most people. So I'm just curious, and I'm going to be tracking it. I'm curious to see how Twitch viewership numbers go. Well, I wanted this video to be short, so I'm going to end it here. There's a whole lot to talk about and unpack here when it comes to this rules change on Twitch. And, I mean, go down in the comments and tell me what other stuff you think about this rules change. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Remember to hit that sub button. Remember to hit that bell icon for more. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.